This video was made possible by viewers like you over on Patreon. Check out the link in the description to hear how you can help make shows like this be even more amazing. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Man, can you really believe I've been doing Witch Ninja for 6 years now? I originally thought I was gonna spend a lot more time adjusting my glasses and saying, actually, to a lot of pop media shinobi and explaining how terrible they are as actual ninja. And in a few cases, that really was the case, but as a whole, surprisingly, most of them have been pretty accurate, all things considered. But as I look back on this long-running series, I can't help but feel like kinda strayed away from the reason I started in the first place. A single popular stereotype of ninja that, despite being at least 400 years old in Japan, tore through popular media in the West like lightning in the 80s and 90s. I speak, of course, of the overpowered invincible ninja trope. Now, for all you Zoomers out there, I know you've got your own examples of this trope in shows like Randy Cunningham 9th Grade Ninja, Lego's Ninjago, Mini Ninjas, and even Shuriken School for some of you older Gen Zers. But man, y'all gotta understand how fire this trope was between 1970 and the late 90s, and how that fascination propagated the trope of the one-man ninja army that we see today. In the 70s, the West really was gobbling up all manner of martial arts movies. Enter the Dragon, Fists of Fury, Drunken Master, and the Five Fingers of Death were unique movies that we'd never seen before and were powerful spectacles that audiences couldn't get enough of. It was utterly addicting watching martial arts actors like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Donnie Yen utterly dismantle roomfuls of bad guys. We wanted more. Didn't matter from where, we just wanted more Asian action movies. And it was at this time we got a taste of a brand new invincible martial artist. Not from Hong Kong, but Japan, in the form of James Bond You Only Live Twice in 1967. From this movie, popular media was finally graced by the first utterance of the very word itself.
I have much better. Ninjas. Top secret, Bonsa. This is my ninja training school.
From there, we saw the individual power that ninja were capable of. A single individual taking on multiple opponents with ease, hacking away dummies in fierce, single precise strikes of a katana, and pinpoint puncturing targets using shuriken. Granted, these days it all looks, well, a little bit silly. And if I'm being real, You Only Live Twice actually has a pretty balanced depiction of ninja, as a good number of them actually eat it in a lot of the action scenes. But there was just something here that could not be denied. Ninja were powerful. Dropping in out of nowhere in small squads, being able to take down a quote nigh impregnable fortress, with individual ninjas drawing their shoulder-slung katanas and single-handedly taking out 6 to a dozen bad guys carrying guns, with a flashing flare that's still exciting to watch to this day. While I admit that the popularity of ninja came in as a piece of the overall martial arts craze started by Hong Kong movies in the 80s, there's just something that's differentiated about ninja in these movies compared to kung fu fighter movies. Ninja felt more intense. Hong Kong martial artist movie stars were insanely impressive, don't get me wrong, but they were more straightforward. They fought with their fists or improvised weapons. They typically squared up with their opponents in their fights. They also had an appearance of regular everyday people wearing simple clothing. So this gave Hong Kong heroes their own flavor of both being honorable fighters and relying only on their own bodies, but ninja were something else entirely. They struck their enemies from the shadows with overpowering force. They used insanely wide varieties of weapons, from the basic to the exotic. Their very shozoku styles gave them a fierce edge to their appearance. They were everything that we saw in Hong Kong martial arts movies cranked up to 11, and with upgraded intensity came upgraded threats. Where many martial arts stars would take down rooms full of enemies in their movies, ninja would take down entire complexes by themselves, using inhuman stealth, overpowering martial arts prowess, magic, and other unique weapons both high and low tech to accomplish their goals. And it was pure elation that lasted decades. Come the 90s, at least in the United States, the concept of ninja began to overshadow the kung fu expert in the ultimate martial arts power fantasy. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Three Ninjas, American Ninja, Ninja Scroll, Surf Ninja, Shinobi, The Hunted? There's even comical takes on the trope like Beverly Hills Ninja. In the 90s, ninja were everywhere, and while the hype of shinobi media cooled down in the 2000s, ninja were, and still are, the subject of dozens of pieces of popular media that release every year.
Yeah, but it's not like Japan wasn't neck-deep in their own hype for shinobi. While ninja hype was in full swing in the West, so was the hunger for Japanese video game systems. And with a brand new medium of entertainment taking off, Japanese developers wasted no time telling and retelling stories of overpowered shinobi wielding exotic weapons, magic spells, and high-tech gadgets. with classics like Shinobi, Ninja Gaiden, Ganbare Goemon, The Ninja Warriors, Hagane, Lord of Kage, Shadow of the Ninja, and dude, who could forget about the Ninja Jajamaru series?
Wait, Jajamaru? That's a new one?
Really? The series has had releases in 85, 86, 90, 91, 94, and even 2020, believe that or not.
Huh.
Yeah, man. Jajamaru did everything from bonkers platforming games to full-on RPGs, as well as sponsored this very video. There's Ninja Jajamaru in the Ninja Skill Book and The Legend of the Golden Castle in the Lost RPG Collection for starters. Think Dragon Quest and Legend of Zelda or Star Tropics respectively. But instead of a European fantasy theme, it's ninjas and yokai, baby! Then there's the half-dozen different Ninja Jajamaru platformers spanning 1985 to 2020. The most recent of which takes all the mechanics from the previous games and smooths them out into a really fast-paced arcadey platformer. But if you need something with a little more substance, I suggest Super Ninja Kid for the SNES. Weird localization aside, it feels an awful lot like SNES Goemon, and that game was equal parts goofy and a good challenge. So whether it's classic turn-based RPGs, top-down adventure, or platforming retro action featuring the best of Japanese cultural nonsense from the 80s and 90s, hit up our link in the description.
Yeah, real talk for a second, I actually did stream one of the Jajamaru RPGs, and all things considered, it played really well and was a ton of fun. So if I can speak above the microphone really quick, I really do suggest you give these a go. But anyway, all this just goes to show that whether it be movies, TV shows, video games, anime, or comics, we still love ninja. And why? Because they're the ultimate impossible martial arts fantasy. A single individual with the power to easily overcome any odds. Hidden like a shadow, able to take down any enemy no matter how great, armed with weaponry from the exotic and ancient to the cutting edge, with a striking outfit that screams their power. Ninja are unstoppable. At least, that was the myth. A myth that Japan herself started back in the late 1600s with tales of similar unstoppable ninjas such as Ishikawa Goemon, a Robin Hood-esque shinobi that fought and died for the downtrodden everyman, or Nezumi Kozo, another folk hero who robbed from the rich to give to the poor, or Fumiko Taro, the legendary and devilish half-Oni half-man who led the Fuma Ninja clan against Hattori Hanzo and the Iga Ninja, or the greatest inhumanly powerful ninja of them all, Jiraiya, a man of mystical toad magic, a bandit with a heart of gold, and a folk hero locked in an epic fight against his greatest nemesis, Orochimaru. All individuals who had stories celebrating their near invincibility and power through Edo period books and kabuki plays to modern day movies, manga, and video games, influencing much of the ninja craze of the 90s. But it all comes to this. What inspired them? What inspired this concept of the invincible ninja? That's the question that's been weighing on my mind for the last couple of months as I've been reflecting on these Which Ninja episodes. It's not so much which are good and which are bad, but which were the cornerstone of this pop media trend that started this whole thing, that propagated the fantastical lie that ninja were the strongest, smartest, most powerful warriors not only in Japan, but hyped as the best in the world. Well, I spent a couple weeks pondering this question, and I think I've got a couple of answers you might be interested in. First, I want to start with the war that most historians cite as the period of history that sealed the legends and myths of the near-invincible shinobi and influenced all of these above-mentioned pop ninja, the Tencho Iga no Ran. Now, the first thing you gotta understand about Iga is that it wasn't under the control of any daimyo. It was actually a militant confederation of 12 shinobi-experienced households called the Iga Sokoku-iki. It was 100% self-governed and self-militarized, meaning it did not have any sort of direct support of troops or even basic necessities from any other clan or daimyo. They were on their own, and Iga's not that big compared to other areas of Japan. But that's what makes this story so special, because since Iga didn't recognize any sort of central government, it quickly became the target of Oda Nobunaga, who was on the fast track of unifying all of Japan under his control in the late 1500s. And this sort of brazen independence from Iga was absolutely unacceptable. So after a bit of additional coaxing, in 1579, Oda Nobunaga's son, Oda Nobukatsu, who had just gained control over neighboring Ise, rallied an army of over 10,000 strong to bring Iga to heel. And they were massacred. Not only was Nobukatsu's castle fort at Maruyama Iga burnt to cinders before it was even completed, but when Nobukatsu led his 10,000 strong army through Nagano Pass, thousands of his soldiers were slaughtered in guerrilla ambushes laden with traps, bombs, and flame. Tail tucked between his legs, Nobukatsu retreated with a fraction of his remaining forces. Outraged and threatening to disown Nobukatsu, Oda Nobunaga himself mustered an army to deal with Iga. But this time, he brought an army 5 times the size of Nobukatsu's, surrounding the entire province with 6 squads of 2,500 to 12,000 soldiers. Oda, over the course of a month, would burn and kill everything that he could in Iga, slaughtering over half of the entire population. Now, with a force so large that created a six-front war and tactics so utterly brutal, it was only an inevitability that Iga would fall to Oda Nobunaga. But considering they were alone in this war, with only their tactics and resources at hand, it is just phenomenal to consider how much martial prowess Iga exerted over Oda Nobukatsu. This is why so many historians say that this is the moment that cemented the ninja as near mystical warriors capable of dominating their enemies against overwhelming odds. But personally, I don't agree with this sentiment. In my 6 years that I've done Witch Ninja, I've studied a lot of different battles involving shinobi and their leaders, and the Tencho Iga no Ran wasn't even close to the greatest against the odds victory that Ninja ever saw. To show you what I mean, let me take you back to 1487 with an individual by the name of Mochizuki Izumo no Kami, leader of the Koga clan who is said to have blood relations to its very founder, Koga Saburo. During this time, the Koga had a treaty with another nearby clan, the Rokaku. They swore that as long as Koga was left to rule itself independently, they would come to the aid of the Rokaku should they need it. And in 1487, that time absolutely came. After years of ignoring the Ashikaga shogunate under their own municipality, Ashikaga Yoshihisa brought with him an army of 25,000 troops to obliterate the Rokaku clan. With their base at Kannonshi Castle in ruins, the Rokaku fled to Koga territory with Yoshihisa hot on their trail. But rather than experiencing one last resistance push, the Ashikaga troops were greeted only with the silence of the dense forested hills, marred only by the occasional sound of animals in the region. Except these weren't sounds coming from animals at all. They were Mochizuki Izumo's men relaying information, and for the next few days, less than 100 shinobi would begin to whittle down Ashikaga's 25,000 strong in a series of brutal hit-and-run tactics that Mochizuki would dub the Kameroku no Ho, or the Six Turtle Strategy.
Hey yo, Ninja Turtle connection? I mean, if you count Slash and Venus, it makes 6.
Alright, firstly, those two don't count. Secondly, the Kameroku no Ho refers to the idea of a turtle having 6 different points working withdrawn to its shell. 4 limbs, a head, and a tail. Symbolically, the Koga would extend out like a limb, strike, and then withdraw back into the turtle shell of the mountains. Anyway, after capitalizing on a series of now well-known ninja tropes such as Noroshi bomb smokescreens, nighttime raids in dense snowy weather, loud shocking firecrackers, and some not-so-tropish, like using a homemade barometer using teacups and feathers, Mochizuki and his men with the remaining Rokaku forces were able to finish off the Ashikaga fortress with insane success, slaying Yoshihisa and stopping the shogunate's army from destroying the Rokaku. Though I can't find the exact numbers, Mochizuki Izumo no Kami and his ninjas fought in a 3-year war at odds of 10-1 in his enemy's favor. But through tact, overpowering ambushing, mind games, and modern technology, these ninja beat back the shogun's army, cementing the Koga as near invincible badasses. But even this victory, in my opinion, isn't the greatest tale of shinobi invincibility ever told. 10-1 odds are pretty tough, but how about 300-1 odds? It's 1573 at the tail end of the Battle of Mikatagahara. Tokugawa Ieyasu is facing down the legendary Tiger of Kai Takeda Shingen, and Ieyasu is getting pasted. Despite having the better tech and firearms, Takeda Shingen showed exactly why he was the king of cavalry by having Naito Masatoyo's vanguard smash into Ieyasu's formations. After losing most of his officers, Ieyasu fled to Hanamatsu Castle accompanied by only 5 of his retainers. 5. And the 100-some-odd soldiers that were left in the castle to garrison it were sure that they were going to meet their doom. But Ieyasu defied logic by throwing open the gates, lighting all of the castle's torches, and sounding war drums in both a show of defiance and to allow what few troops may have remained back in the original battle to find their way back to base. Thinking this brazen behavior to be a trap, Takeda's vanguard made camp just outside the castle to wait out the situation. And that was the moment of stillness that Ieyasu's retainer, Hattori Hanzo, decided to strike at. With only about 100 samurai, shinobi, and gunners in total, Hanzo ambushed the Takeda camp come nightfall, sowing insurmountable amounts of carnage and confusion. Unsure of how great Ieyasu's reinforcements were, Takeda's vanguard retreated back to their territory to regroup and then attack the next following year. I'm not 100% sure with my numbers, as historians like to argue such semantics with this battle, but based on what I've researched, Hattori Hanzo and his band of 100 troops using shinobi tactics were able to rout an entire army of 30,000 strong. Where Mochizuki Izumo Okami had his 100 ninja and the handful of Rokaku warriors left to fight the shogunate's army, Hattori Hanzo only had 100, many of which didn't even have any shinobi training. I hate to say it, gang, but I don't even think the Spartans and Thespians had odds that rough during the Battle of Thermopylae. It's this and stories like this, many of which I haven't even begun to divulge, are the roots of a myth that followed shinobi from Japan's Warring States period, to its period of artistic renaissance and peace in Edo, to traversing the globe, making their way to Europe and the Americas, that ninjas were near invincible warriors. One-man armies able to take on a force of hundreds and confidently dismantle them through stealth, magic, technology, and a military mindset greater than any other. And while the capabilities of the ninja have been drastically over-exaggerated through the centuries, there is a very good reason why they began in the first place. I can't sit here and say that Bushi, Ashigaru, and samurai that practice shinobi tactics were the best warriors in the world, but I can confidently say that the myths, the legends, and even the lies that we fell in love with in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even today are not without their own historical kernels of truth. This is why no matter how much I hyperfixate on which ninja are good and which ninja are bad in this series, and I mean, especially the bad, I will always love shinobi. Myth or truth, lies or history, they represent something I think we can all love. A superhero that overcomes impossible odds by themselves, fueled by training, discipline, and even supernatural powers that we can only dream to have. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a big thank you to Enin Games and Jaja Maru for sponsoring this video. If you're looking for old school RPGs, be it top-down or turn-based, or even some crazy platforming challenges, be sure to check these games out by clicking the link in the description. And as always, the biggest thank you to my patrons who keep Witch Ninja alive. I know a lot of you wanted to hear more about how Oda Nobunaga, in retrospect, wasn't as bad as history makes him out to be, and how Japan is nearly a country-wide liminal space. But don't worry, I'm not axing those ideas. We'll just have to get to them a little bit later. So if you love learning about Japan and want to see more, be sure to sub up and swing back every other week for a brand new video. But until next time, everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah signing out.